I still remember the way the sun felt on my skin that morning. Warm, golden, like it was blessing our beginning. We had just arrived in the Bahamas, Derek and I, freshly married and high on love. Everything felt cinematic. Our room had the kind of view that steals your breath. The waves below us whispered promises of forever. I thought, this is it. This is the life I dreamed of. Every moment felt suspended in bliss. We were doing it all. Barefoot walks in the sand, champagne breakfasts with mango slices shaped like hearts, late-night dips in the pool with the moon as our spotlight. Derek had even surprised me with a candlelit dinner on the beach our first night. He looked at me like I was his whole world, and I believed it. God, I really did. On our third morning, I had a full spa day lined up. Massages, facials, the works. It was supposed to be my little slice of heaven within paradise. Derek smiled when I told him. "That's all you, babe," he said, stretching like a man with zero worries. "I'll probably just hang by the pool, or check out the game room." I kissed him goodbye, not a single doubt in my heart. "Enjoy yourself," I told him. Walking through the resort felt like moving through a postcard. The air smelled like salt and hibiscus, and every breeze felt like it was made to kiss my shoulders. I passed couples laughing, kids splashing in the shallow end, and staff offering fresh coconuts with wide smiles. It was one of those mornings where everything felt soft and easy. I remember thinking, how lucky am I? As I approached the spa, my excitement bubbled. I was ready to let go of every ounce of tension and melt into that plush robe, surrender to the lavender oils and gentle hands. It felt indulgent, like I was finally gifting myself a moment of stillness. But more than anything, I wanted to tell Derek all about it later. I pictured myself back in our suite, glowing and relaxed, crawling into his arms to share every little detail. The receptionist welcomed me with a smile and handed over a glass of cucumber water. "Just sign here and we'll get you started." I reached into my bag, and that's when I realized, no phone, no buzzing, no weight of it sitting there. I laughed a little, shaking my head. "Classic me," I muttered. I thanked her and turned back toward the elevators, deciding I'd grab it quickly before settling into serenity. I took the elevator up, barefoot in my spa slippers, humming along to the soft island music playing overhead. My head was full of nothing but peaceful thoughts. I even caught a glimpse of myself in the mirrored panel. Flushed cheeks, sea-kissed hair, a woman who looked happy. Whole. It was one of those moments you want to freeze forever. I had no idea that everything I knew was about to shift in a single breath. As the elevator climbed, I thought about texting Derek once I grabbed my phone. Something silly like, "You better not be beating anyone too hard at pool," with a winky face. That was our rhythm. Playful, light, full of inside jokes. I trusted him, completely. If someone had told me seconds before what I was about to see, I would have laughed it off. I would have bet my life he'd never... No, could never. The doors slid open with a soft chime. I stepped out, still smiling, still glowing, still in love. But just a few feet away, I saw something that cracked the world beneath me. Derek, my husband, slipping into a room that wasn't ours, with a woman I'd never seen before. And just like that, paradise wasn't paradise anymore. I froze. Not in the dramatic, cinematic way. No gasps, no wide eyes. Just stillness. My body stopped moving, but inside, it felt like something shattered and echoed through every bone. Derek's hand was on the small of her back, the same way he touched me when we were walking through the airport just days ago. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't hiding. He looked comfortable, familiar. I didn't move until the door closed behind them. Room 409. I remember because the number flashed red in my mind like an alarm. 409. Burned in like a scar. I stood there in that hallway, barefoot, spa slippers too quiet on the carpet to make any noise. I was holding a glass bottle of cucumber water, and my fingers were trembling. The condensation slid down, dripping like the first tear I wouldn't let fall. My first instinct was to tell myself I had imagined it. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe I was being ridiculous. But my body knew, Every cell in me knew. You don't mistake the back of the man you've slept beside for years. You don't confuse the way he laughs, leans, touches, and you sure as hell don't misread betrayal when it punches you straight in the gut. I finally forced my legs to move, not toward him, not toward the door I suddenly wanted to rip off its hinges. No, I walked straight into our suite like I was on autopilot. Everything looked the same as when I'd left it less than an hour ago. Neatly made bed, 2 flutes from last night's champagne, his sandals kicked off near the balcony door. It was eerie, the stillness of a room that belonged to a lie. I picked up my phone from the nightstand. My hand was shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. I kept staring at the screen, like it would tell me what to do. Should I call him? Storm down the hallway? Pack my bags? Cry? Scream? Instead, I did something else. Something quiet, deliberate. I opened our messages and started typing. My fingers moved faster than my thoughts. Having fun in the game room? It felt petty and somehow not enough, but it was a start, a test. I wanted to see how far he'd go with the lie, how much he'd twist the knife before I pulled it out myself. Within seconds, the message was delivered, read, and then, yeah, just killing time, pool tables and beers. You? It was like watching someone smile while standing on your grave. That was the moment I stopped shaking. Not because I felt better, but because something inside me clicked. A kind of cold, clean focus. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. He'd just told me, in real time, that he was somewhere he wasn't. While I stood just feet away from the truth, his truth, the one he thought I'd never see. That kind of betrayal doesn't rip you apart. It clarifies you. I slipped my phone into my robe pocket and stepped quietly back into the hallway. My heart was still racing, but my footsteps were calm, steady. I wasn't going to give him the drama he might expect. No loud accusations, no door slamming. I just walked to the room. 409, the one with his fingerprints all over it. And I stood there, silent, waiting. People walked past, staff, other guests. No one noticed me. Just a woman standing outside a door like she belonged there. I stared at the polished numbers until they blurred, but I didn't blink. Not yet. Because I knew, eventually, that door would open again. I don't know how long I stood there. Could have been 20 minutes. Could have been 40. Time stretches in strange ways when your heart is trying to stay quiet. Every laugh from down the hallway, every creak of a door that wasn't his, made me flinch just a little. But I held my ground. I wasn't just waiting, I was watching, gathering, preparing myself for whatever would come through that door. My mind went back to our wedding, the vows he whispered with tears in his eyes, how he said he'd never let me feel alone again, how I believed him, every word. I thought about how I'd spent months planning this honeymoon, the tiny details, the surprise spa booking, the playlist I made for the beach. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sadness. Not yet. Just disappointment, sitting heavy in my chest like wet sand. I pulled out my phone again. If he wanted to play games, I could play them better. I opened our thread, stared at his last lie, then typed, "Is it fun? The game room, I mean?" It felt sharp, measured, not quite a blade, more like a needle. Precise enough to make him think, but soft enough not to blow everything up. Yet. He replied almost instantly, "Yeah, tons of fun. I might grab another drink in a bit." I stared at his message like it was a stranger speaking to me through his mouth. Another drink? In a room with felt-lined tables and flickering neon signs? No. He was in bed with another woman, lying to the person he vowed to love. And he was doing it so casually, like I was the fool for even asking. That was the worst part. Not the betrayal itself, but the ease with which he served it. There was a flicker of rage, sure. It surged up, hot and bitter, but I swallowed it. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of an outburst. I wouldn't become some dramatic scene he could rewrite in his memory later. I wanted control, poise. I wanted the moment he saw me to haunt him, to crawl under his skin and stay there long after this vacation turned to dust. So I stayed, right there. Right in front of that door. One hand in my robe pocket, the other clutched around my phone like it was the only thing tethering me to myself. I imagined him laughing on the other side of that wall, her hand on his chest, their voices low, intimate. I imagined all of it, because pretending it wasn't happening would have been worse. I started picturing what I'd say when he walked out. 1,000 versions played in my mind, some cold, some clever, some that would cut deep and never heal. But I couldn't settle on any of them, not yet, because the truth is, no words ever really match the weight of betrayal. There's no sentence strong enough to undo the damage. Sometimes, silence says more than screaming ever could, and that's what I decided I'd give him. Silence first, then the mirror. I'd let him see what he really looked like standing in the middle of his own lie. No screaming wife, no drama to weaponize. Just me. Calm, knowing. Standing tall in a robe and spa slippers, right outside the door he never thought I'd find. That, I figured, would be louder than anything I could ever say. So I waited. One breath at a time, one heartbeat after another. I waited for that doorknob to turn, for the sound of betrayal to meet the face of consequence, because eventually every game reaches its final round, and I was ready to deal the last hand. The door creaked open. Slowly, like the universe was giving me time to decide, fight or flight. I didn't move, I barely even blinked. And then he appeared, Derek, my husband, adjusting his shirt, tousling his hair with that smug little half grin he wore when he thought no one was watching. Except this time, I was. And the look on his face when he saw me? That was my justice. He stopped mid-step. The color drained from his cheeks so fast you'd think he'd seen a ghost. And maybe he had. The version of me that used to trust him, that used to believe in fairy tales and honeymoons. I didn't flinch, didn't fold. My arms crossed gently over my chest, like I was just watching a show. I saw his lips part, searching for words. I didn't give him the space to find them. Funny, I said, calm as the sea we once walked beside. Didn't know the game room offered turn-down service. His mouth opened wider, but no words came out. Just the sound of someone caught in their own net. Behind him, I saw her, the woman, wrapped in the hotel's robe, eyes wide, realizing the scene she had walked into. Her gasp was audible, but mine never came. She looked at me like I was the intruder, like I had shattered something sacred. I wanted to laugh, not out of humor, but from the absurdity of it all. The robe she wore? The same one the resort left in every suite. Same terry cloth, same embroidered logo. Except it clung to my husband now, carried my name in her presence, and it felt like such a cheap exchange. Luxury on the surface, betrayal underneath. Derek took a small step forward. Camille, But I lifted my hand, not as a threat, as a quiet command. I wasn't interested in his rehearsed panic or whatever excuse he was about to invent on the spot. I didn't want his panic. I wanted clarity, and I wanted him to feel the sting of it the way I had, wordless and final. I pulled out my phone, slowly, deliberately, and held up the screen so he could read our last messages. The proof, the lie, the exact moment he looked me in the eye and told me he was somewhere else. He stared at it like it might disappear if he just blinked hard enough. I didn't say a word, didn't need to. His silence said everything. I let the phone hang between us for a moment longer, then gently lowered it and slid it back into my robe pocket. No drama, no shouting, just finality. Derek looked like he wanted to reach for me, to say something, anything, but there was nothing left to say. Not after that. Not after I stood still long enough for the truth to show itself. And now that it had, I was done carrying the weight of it. Without another word, I turned around. Just turned. Calm, steady, as if I had simply finished a meeting I never asked for. I could feel him watching me, probably hoping I'd stop, cry, beg. But I gave him nothing. Because in that moment, he had already lost me, not with the lie, but with how small he thought I was. Small enough not to notice. Small enough not to matter. I walked back down the hallway the same way I came, only I wasn't the same woman anymore. I wasn't glowing with love or looking forward to spa oils and facials. I wasn't searching for my phone. I was done searching for anything. What I needed now wasn't in that room, but I knew exactly where I'd find it next. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I went straight to the front desk, smiled, calm. I asked if there were any Ocean View suites still available, under a different name, of course. My maiden name. The one that belonged to me before him, before the lie, before I ever thought forever came with fine print. The clerk tapped a few keys, looked up with a grin. "We have something very special for you, Ms. Vaughn." Perfect. I checked into the new room before sunset. The view was even better than our original suite, higher up, quieter, farther from room 409. I slipped into the fresh robe waiting on the bed, poured myself a glass of champagne from the welcome tray, and opened the balcony doors. The breeze hit different now. Not sweeter exactly, but freer. The kind that doesn't ask permission to move. I didn't block Derek. Not yet. I wanted him to feel the shift. I wanted him to wonder. I left the old room untouched, just told the front desk my husband would no longer be joining me, and that his access should be revoked immediately. "Safety reasons," I said with a smile. The concierge nodded. "Of course, Ms. Vaughn. Consider it done." And just like that, I had erased him from my space, even before I'd erased him from my life. The next few days were mine. Every last second of them. I booked a sunset boat ride, all on his card. I ordered room service like royalty. Fresh lobster, chocolate soufflés, champagne by the bottle, not the glass. I floated through the spa in silence, letting strangers wash away pieces of a marriage I no longer recognized. I laughed. Quietly at first, then louder, as if each moment of joy was reclaiming something he'd tried to steal. The staff treated me like a queen. And why wouldn't they? I tipped well, with his money. I even wore the white silk dress I had saved for our last night. The one I'd packed with so much care, thinking it'd be the dress I'd toast our future in. And in a way, I did, just not with him. I wore it for myself, toasted to freedom, to clarity, to the woman who didn't run when the door opened, who stood her ground. I didn't need revenge that burned or bruised. This was quieter, sharper, more dignified. I knew he'd be spiraling. I imagined him calling my name, knocking on a room he could no longer enter, watching the charges roll in with every hour. That was the thing. He'd given me paradise, and then showed me who he really was. So I stayed in paradise, and made sure I enjoyed every second without him. When I finally left the island, I didn't look back. Not at the resort, not at room 409, not at the man who watched me board my flight in silence, holding a suitcase full of his own consequences. What waited for him back home wasn't me. It was a neatly prepared envelope with my signature on the dotted line. Divorce. Clean, final, and delivered before the tan could fade from his skin. A few weeks later, I wrote everything down, not for revenge, but for release. I submitted my story anonymously to a travel blog, the kind that shares tales of wanderlust, mishaps, and unexpected self-discovery. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. The post took off like wildfire. Shared, commented, reposted. Thousands of women, strangers, sending messages that all sounded the same. "You gave me strength." I realized something then. The ending he gave us wasn't the end of me. It was the beginning. Of my voice, of my boundaries, of the version of myself that doesn't shrink or beg or explain. So yeah, maybe what happened in paradise didn't stay there. But thank God it didn't, because sometimes the truth needs a passport to find its way home.